Hello everyone, Nick here, and welcome to the creation of Seka Part 3. So this will be all about asset creation in Cinema 4D, some retopology, and then preparing everything for the composition in Photoshop for Path 4. So here I send over all the objects to Cinema 4D, and the first thing I'll do, just a quick render to get a first impression and change the resolution to what I want. So I decided to go for the Instagram portrait format. It's like 4:5 ratio. And now getting my first octane light into the scene to get an overall feel for what I have here. If some stuff wouldn't work out now, I could go back to ZBrush and change things, but I think it looks good here. I'll probably spend some time just to see what kind of lighting I'll go for, what options I have, and where I have like the most interesting shadows. So see me playing around with that quite a lot. It's a standard octane material, I think, just white. And that's why I really like Octane here, because you see all your changes on the fly. And now I'll actually change the material a little. You do not see my second screen here. I'm sorry for that. Like I said, it was intended to be just a time lapse. And then you guys asked me to like post the whole process. So the second screen is missing here. And I don't know if for future workshops I should change my interface to like the standard interface so you can like better follow along. Let me know about that in the comments. Would be interested what you think about it. So what I'm doing here is a very quick dirt setup to have some darker crevices. Because the material I will apply later definitely uses dirt maps. So it separates the parts even more. So it's just a little tweaking for an effect I like. So now I multiply that with a color and go quite dark here, because I know he will have like a dark look and feel to it. Because here in Cinema 4D, I was spending most of my time like creating assets and not like rendering too much, because I have like a library of a couple of materials I use because I built them before, so I don't have to build them every time. So you won't see me creating octane materials in the process here, because I will just use some I already created, and then I will comp that in Photoshop later. If you're especially interested in my Octane workflow and creating materials, let me know. So now I'll finally create that hair part that I had in my mind the whole time, but that was hard for you to imagine what would happen. So I knew quite early that I would do this. And that's the part where I said like some stuff comes with experience, so that I know that this will kind of work. So I'm creating a spline here, give it some thickness. And I really like how the spline manipulation works in Cinema 4D. Pretty much like Photoshop and Illustrator, but in 3D space. So now I'll tweak it so that it has like the right position. And then I'll just mirror it over with a symmetry object. And I really like to work in this with this like split screen. It has the advantage that I don't have to turn my camera so often because I see what happens on all the other angles, like the most important angles. And that gives me a lot of control when I'm making changes. Oh, look at that. Now I'll make it appear as if they were actually touching the armor. And also following that armor flow more, as if they were like kind of interacting, because it sits on top. And I think I even add some more weight here. Oh no, I already did that. If you look at it from the side, that you see that there is like a little, or the part where it touches the armor, there is like a slight angle at it, like a harder angle, to kind of mimic the weight that's caused by it. And now the second part that I wanted to do for quite some time, that I got rid of in ZBrush, but I knew I wanted to have at some point, and that's the beard. So first I create a spline here for the beard itself, or for one part. And then I create another one to clone this one part onto. So they just have to control like one piece and get the effect I want. Yeah, that's the spline I'll use for the cloner. And I really like the setup, or to set it up this way, because it gives me a lot of control instead of just like building this one piece and then just copying it. And I actually end up changing the beard because I like the effect here in Cinema 4D more. So that was like an happy accident that occurred just because of the angles I worked with. Just playing around, I'm actually like tilting it up or down. And this was kinda what I had in in ZBrush. But then this was interesting. But I think I ended up like turning, I ended up turning it around. I mean, in ZBrush I had a different angle, and now it's not following the X shape I described. And now it gets like too much attention. Yeah, so I ended up turning them downwards, which I liked a lot. And now I'm transforming my cloner or my clones into objects. That's what you see here. And now I can work on each of them separately and control. But they had like too many points because I made a mistake. I just want like 3 points to control, and you see there I've like too many, so I changed that. Some back and forth to figure it out how I could do it. Because the whole guy is like very symmetrical. So I didn't want the beard to be symmetrical as well. So I wanted to get some little randomness into how this beard looks like. And now I get what I want. And now I can tweak the whole thing with just like 2 points on each side with a tangent in between. Oh no, not even. It's really just 2 points, not 3. And now I'm trying to make it as that they're not like touching anymore. Because I know that I will like add details to it later. So they need some more space between them. Now that I look at it afterwards, maybe I should have probably kept the symmetry and then just splitting up the mesh in the end and then perform just some minor tweaks here and there. Would have probably cost me like less time. But I think at this point I really enjoyed that. It's not that I thought like, oh my god, this is tedious work. I don't know, at this point it feels quite rewarding because most of the stuff is done, and I really know what I want to achieve here, what kind of look I'm going for. So I think maybe that's where perfectionism kicked in a little. So maybe this decision here just led to quite a few unnecessary steps, but I really like this idea that it's it's still all practice, and I haven't been working in 3D much lately, so all of this like helps me to get back into it, and I think it all helps. Now I'm tweaking the subdivisions, because in Cinema 4D it's very important to really check how your NURB objects you create from splines will actually look like when you convert them into polygon objects. So this is really important, and I want to have even topology so that I'll be able to like do some nice stuff with it later. And I just wanted to even that out a bit. And now you see how I'm changing the polygon amount and deciding on what I'll need for later. And while I'm on it, I'll do it for the, let's call it hair as well. And for some reason I still had like some objects of the beard selected. Now I'm just working on the hair. Oh, that's too much. That looks much better. And you can also see how the ZBrush topology looked like. But you can't see that on the model if you don't zoom in like a lot. So it's perfectly fine that it looks weird. And like I said, I didn't even use the Z remeasure, so for like a quick and dirty way to visualize something you have on your mind, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, now checking how it looks like lighting conditions. I'm further tweaking the camera, thinking about how I would render them. Maybe that he's like looking down. For quite some time, I really like this stronger angle and looking up at him. But then on the other hand, like a lot of stuff on his face got lost. And I felt like you would get a better connection to the character if you were looking into the face more and not just up, not seeing much of it. Created a new light here. I think I saved the camera so that I can go back to it. And now I think I'm trying to figure out where my main light will really come from. So zooming out here and there to get more feedback on what happens. And this time I have like a target light, so it automatically targets where my object sits. For quite some time I was unsure of it. It's like light from the left or right side. I also wanted to have a stronger shadow on it. But then I decided that I could comp that later by just rendering like one light out with a good, with a shadow I like more. So I'm actually fine here putting that light not too high up and more into his face to get some better highlights on his face. Getting closer. Yeah, now you can see that it actually backfired. That I had no headpiece anymore. But then I decided to just move his whole head down. And I don't know why I didn't see that in ZBrush. Maybe maybe I liked him having like such a long throat. I don't know. Also makes you question again if there's someone inside of it or not. Yeah, you can see that I really liked this angle a lot, and was a lot of back and forth. But like I said, I decided to show more of the face in the end. And now I actually created a background, because by default Octane has some global illumination applied, and that's why it appears quite light. And now you only have the lighting of the Octane light I used. But I wanted to light the whole scene with an HDRI image. And what I'm doing now is I align the HDRI image to match my main light source. And I think I tweaked that a lot. Of course, now this part is missing because it's all happening on my other screen. But what you see here is that I kept rotating and rotating, and maybe something was missing. Maybe it was not the right image. Maybe I changed it at some point. But it's the same. You kind of have to decide what's important and where you want to have your focus. Because if the whole object is lit like too well and you can see everything, it's kind of boring. And I know that many artists, I think me included, often like shy away from making things too dark, because all their details that they've worked on so hard are not visible anymore. I'm spending quite some time right now to really figure out the final angle of the camera. Because if I would change it drastically later on, then maybe I would have to also change assets. And I just want to make sure that the angle I pick now will be the one I will be rendering later on. That's why I'm tweaking it so much, so that I don't have to go back later. And I kind of wasn't happy with the angle. So I think I even created a new camera to start fresh. But now I have something that I like. No, still tweaking. Now I got it, and I'll open a KitBash library. And for some reason, double click was not working, so I had to drag it into my scene or Cinema 4D. Now I just checked if it's open, but it's not, so I really had to drag it into the window. Or even open it from Cinema 4D itself. And I don't know where I got this library from, but it was free. So you'll probably find a lot of free KitBash stuff out there. So now I'm just looking at all of it, and I kind of knew what I was looking for and what I wanted to try. So I'm just picking a couple of pieces here, not too many. I was looking for some detail on his chin and also some bolts. Something simple, not too detailed. Yeah, that's it. I just pasted them here. And from this part, I'll actually just remove the top. And then get rid of the rest. It's all triangulated, so I removed that. For me, it's always nicer to work with quartz. So here I just positioned the object axis to my liking, so that like the positioning now is just easier for me. So I will just position them on one side and then mirror them over. That's what I did here. I just created a null object to place all my KitBash stuff into, and then place them into a symmetry object. And it's also quite tempting to use too much kitbash, but I kind of shy away from that. Because if you use too much kitbash of someone else's work, then, I mean, these pieces are quite detailed and they have a certain style to them. And if you use too much of what somebody else did, then you're overriding your own style with the style of the kitbash set. So that's why I'm mostly using them very careful. And I think it's also fun to kind of create your own kitbash library, your own set. Maybe for a project where you have like several or like a lot of objects to create, you could think about your own kind of library. I kind of wanted to do that for quite some time myself, creating my own kitbash stuff. So maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. If you would be interested in something like that, let me know in the comments. I think that could be fun. Yeah, finally some cables. I mean, stuff like that is not hard to do, but it just, saves time if you already have it. And I really like to just tweak it with the magnet tool in Cinema 4D for like a correct placement or for the placement I need. And again, right, I know that I will render it from the front. And that's why I also wanted to be sure of what kind of angle I will have later on, so that I know where you could actually see that some of the stuff is not working, some of the stuff is intersecting, or some of the cables are floating in the air or something. It's like, yeah, it's a little cheat here and there. But in the end, it's an image. And I think it's a very fine line of what you should even consider doing in 3D if all you aim for is just creating an image. I'm always thinking about that. It's like, does it really have an impact? Does it really change a lot? Or am I better off like maybe even drawing stuff in later? Because it's such a tiny detail that you wouldn't even recognize it or see the difference of a 3D object. And I think that's actually kind of funny that as a 3D artist, you're thinking about, what could I draw to save time? And as an illustrator, you're like, what can I build in 3D to save time? I think that's a position where many people are in. Like, okay, so I learned to draw the last couple of years. I can draw really well now. And there's this thing called 3D. So should I give it a shot? Yeah, sure. I think 3D has like a lot of advantages for illustrators. And I think you can just invest like not much time to benefit like a lot from it. I think from my perspective, it's harder for 3D artists to actually pick up drawings so that it's like useful. It's different for like Photoshop work and composition and stuff. You can actually do a lot there, but to be really able to draw details into your renderings is, I think, a lot harder to do. But there definitely is a part of me that wants to learn that. But I know that every skill takes a lot of time and effort to build. And you probably heard me saying a lot, that's on my list and that's on my list. So you get, it's a pretty long list of stuff to learn. Now I'm doing the same here. Now placing the balls, deciding that I can mirror it right away to see how it looks like. And this is just to add some little details here and there. Like I said, I think the whole design could have benefited a lot if I would have, in general, thought more about the purpose of certain elements. But yeah, I'm still fine with how it all worked out in the end. There I realized that the throat is not symmetrical. That's why it didn't work. So I have to place that later separately. So I think that's what I'm doing now. I think I made a little mistake here. Yeah, it didn't work out, the setup I did. I think I even I fucked something up. Because all the objects I placed were just instances. So I thought by changing like the main object, I could make them appear more on this surface and not in the surface of the object, but I think I kind of messed up. That's why I'm going in here, placing each of them by hand. And if stuff like that happens, it's kind of annoying, but then again, I'll tell myself, it's all practice. You get comfortable navigating in 3D space. And I think that's also something that people underestimate, that it takes time to navigate like very confident through 3D space, placing objects, and you only get that with time. And I think if I would do like a Cinema 4D workshop at some point, I would actually dedicate like a lesson only to that subject, like getting comfortable with like navigating objects through 3D space. I think the faster you get comfortable there, the more you benefit, or all other tools benefit from that. I mean, in ZBrush, it's a different thing, right? You have like your one object, you navigate around it and sculpt on it. But here in Cinema, you have like many different objects. And when you work with polygons and points, it's a different kind of navigation. It's hard to describe, but it works different. So you really have to get comfortable. And it's the same when you start out with ZBrush, the navigation feels a little weird. It's all centered around a certain key. And it probably takes a few hours to really get used to it. And then after a couple of days, it's second nature. You don't even think about it anymore. You just do. So now I saw that with the lighting I was going for, that the forehead is just like too messy. So I did what I could have avoided if I would have sculpted it better. I actually end up retopologizing it. Maybe I could have even used the Z remeasure for that and then take that into Cinema 4D. Because retopology takes time. Now you have to think about where you want edges. You have to think about edge flow. And I haven't done that for quite some time. And maybe that's the reason why I actually decided to do it here. Because I thought like, okay, you haven't done some retopology like for quite some time. You're pretty rusty. And maybe I saw that as an opportunity to get comfortable with it again. And most people, for some reason, shy away from polygon modeling, but I think it's like so if you know how to do it, it's just super effective. And I think it all comes down to a certain set of rules. And if you can apply them, you can apply them to any object, you just have to learn how to do it. And then you will be to create anything, like literally anything you want. And I know that this is quite quick and dirty. And my polygon or edge flow will not be perfect. Because even though I decided to do like some retopology here, I also know that I don't want to spend too much time on it. So I know I probably get an okay result quite fast without building like the perfectly clean UV and game ready topology here. But like looking at it now after quite some time, I think I underestimated how much time it will take anyway. Because now I think like I think it wasn't worth it. Maybe it was, nice to just do it and not shy away from retopologizing stuff and get used to that again, because overall it can be like very, very powerful. But I think in here it would have probably been best to just paint over that part in Photoshop later and clean it up. But yeah, I think even though there are like a lot of like topology tools out there who do like automated topology quite well, I think it's still a good skill to have. Because if you're getting comfortable with that, you're just very, very free. And I probably enjoyed it at that point. Even though most people would say like, oh my God, no topology, leave me alone. And I think especially when you start retopologizing something and when you don't feel so comfortable about it, then I think it would have been better to start with an even simpler form with like less polygons, trying to build it like with the least amount of polygons possible, and then adding details and by details I mean like more polygons, more cuts to make it like suit your needs. I think the good thing about starting with less polygons, as for example for this piece, would have been that it would be like much cleaner from the start, because I think now in the end, because it's based on the old sculpt, which wasn't that clean, I have to tweak it a lot so that it kind of looks good. But maybe I'm just rusty. Because now that I'm doing the voiceover, I actually see how much time I needed for that. And I think I expected to be faster. But it actually took me quite some time. Damn. It's another thing on my list. It keeps getting longer and longer. So I thought for quite some time about what I could, or how I could explain what I'm doing here, so that it's like of any value to you guys. But the thing is, polygon modeling and all the stuff that goes through my mind here, it's hard to explain that on a video like this. Maybe I'll do a tutorial at some point about polygon modeling, because what I like about it is it doesn't matter what kind of program you use. So if you're using Cinema 4D or Blender or 3ds Max, Maya, whatever, the rules for polygon modeling are always like the same. So you could apply it for any software you use now or in the future. And I really like to get into it again, like I said, because I think it's very powerful. And I also think that this was like really bad, what I did here. I see many, many mistakes that I could have done better. But it's also a good way of learning to model the same object over and over again and try to solve it. I'd really like to say it that way, like trying to solve the object, trying to find a way to make it look good, to have a clean topology. Yeah, so like I said, instead of saying what I tried here, I think it's better to make you learn from my mistakes. So I think I definitely started with too many polygons. I should have kept it more simple. And that would allow me to add details where I want. While also keeping the surface cleaner. I think this was out of confidence, because in the past I could have done a simple piece like that, like on the first try. But now it's just been too long. And I have to take smaller steps again. Yeah, so I actually tried to do like a control cut here to add some sharpness to it. Because that's what it's all about. The whole phase you just saw is just to make sure that I have an easy time deciding what edges I will sharpen. So now I'm cleaning it up because it wasn't working on the first try. And I think a good way to learn like good surfacing with polygon modeling is probably like bicycles and cars and stuff, because they have quite interesting shapes. But it's definitely not what I would start with. Stuff like that is quite advanced already. But like I said, maybe I'll do some polygon model tutorial at some point. Would also be great to repeat all the stuff I know and get comfortable with it again. So if you're interested, let me know in the comments. Also let me know what kind of programs you use. I'm really interested in that. I also thought about Blender because it's free and a lot of people use it. And I've seen some very interesting tools that they've introduced over time. But the reason I never change is I'm just so comfortable with using Cinema 4D. any new program would just slow me down for quite some time. So I don't know if that's worth it. And right now, like you've heard, there's enough on my list to learn or to repeat. So maybe at some point, who knows? Same for 3D code. I think it has like really, really cool tools. So I think I'll definitely get into that as well at some point. But it's very, very important to make some decision and to focus on something. And not do everything just a little. It will limit what you can do a lot. A lot of people have asked me actually where, if you want to get into 3D, like where do you start? And I think it really comes down to what you want. So what you want to do. For example, like the choice of software you make is actually quite important depending on what kind of industry you want to get into. Because each program has its strengths and weaknesses. Of course, I think if you have learned like one 3D software pretty well, you can adjust way more easy or learn like the second software way faster because a lot of tools are similar and stuff like navigating in 3D space or basic polygon modeling, basic understanding of lighting, rendering, material systems. It's not that different in all those programs. So the most important question is, what do you actually want? Where do you want to work? What do you want to do? What interests you most? And then have a look at what people in that area use and why they use it. Maybe even ask them. And then just start and get comfortable with that program. And I think it's also much, much better to get comfortable with one program and do not learn like a lot of them at the same time. Because you feel like, with experience, it's okay if you actually use a lot of programs for your stuff and pick like the best parts, the best tools from each one of them. But I think if you get just getting started, it makes your life very, very hard because you tend to forget a lot. And I think it's much, much more beneficial to get really good at something and then move on instead of learning a lot and forgetting half of it. So I think finally this is getting to a point where I'll try a control cut again. So now I'm making a selection of those edges that I want to sharpen. And I think I actually made like an edge selection so I can go back to it. Yeah, I did. Okay. I'm laughing right now because it's really funny to see yourself work. And I have a lot of suggestions like for myself. It's like, yeah, you could do this better, do this better. You could improve that. That's where your mistake is. So this is not perfect, but it's something I can work with. And now I just have to, just correct the symmetry a little. And then clean up the very hard edges with some control cuts. Now you can actually see quite well that those edges where like the points are closest together are like becoming very sharp. So see, I just moved it to the side and it immediately sharpened that area. Now I have a little edge there just because they're closer together. And what I'm doing here is the opposite. I'm moving then further away so that it gets a little more relaxed and there's like less tension in the surface. Yeah, again, moving them close because I decided I'd like an edge there more. And now it's time to work on the corners because that's something the bevel can't work out on its own. Too bad. Maybe in the future. I mean, we have a lot of AI tools helping with lighting and stuff, so hopefully we have some for topology as well. Will be much appreciated. But I'm actually really thankful that you guys asked to see like the whole footage, because otherwise I wouldn't have seen like all those little things. And now I think I've learned a lot just from watching my own workflow here. A lot of lessons learned. So thank you. Oh, now perfectionism kicks in. That's definitely something you wouldn't have seen later on. And some tries here and there wouldn't have been as bad. Like I said, this is not supposed to be some topology for later use. There's no one after me working on the same project. But this whole phase here in Cinema 4D is actually quite relaxing work for me. So I think that's why I did it, because I just didn't care that it takes long. And now I'm actually glad that I did like try to do like a quick retopo, which turned out to be not so quick. But the lessons learned are huge. Because for the most part, I'm self-taught. I mean, of course, I've done like workshops here and there over time, but like while before I was studying and when I was studying was all self-taught. And even when I started to work as a 3D artist, I was in an environment where I did not have many people to teach me. I mean, I learned a lot of other stuff, but I always had to push myself further with 3D on my own. Still not perfect, but I decided that I leave it at that. It's actually quite interesting if you look at it like a puzzle. Like every time you have to solve the puzzle anew. And like I said, there is some kind of set of rules you can work with. And they think this is why, like, for some people, this is, they don't even think about it that hard anymore. Because after you've invested some time into polygon modeling, you've seen like similar situations come up over and over again. The most impressive polygon modeling I've ever seen was by Vitaly Bulgarov. I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's just amazing. I bet you've seen his stuff. It's really hard not to. Maybe you've seen his stuff, but you haven't realized that it was his work. And when he's polygon modeling, you can see the difference in experience that he doesn't have to think about like a lot of situations. You see here and there that he tries to solve something, but it doesn't take him much time. And I remember watching a workshop of him and I was just so impressed. And I think it was such a pity that most people will never see that. Because of course he is really, really good, but he's also really, really busy, right? But just seeing him polygon model would like help so much. The tricks here and there, that would maybe take you months, maybe years to figure out. And right here, you can see it's quite hard to change or make changes like to the model after you apply the control cutting, because now I have like so many more points to worry about. So making this little change here would have been so easy before. And I don't know why I haven't like modeled it from the start. I think the only reason why I'm able to do it quite fast is because I'm using a really powerful plugin, or like it's more a set of plugin. No, it's scripts. It's actually like a collection of scripts, and it's called HB Modeling Bundle. And I use it all the time. It's the tool I use to straighten these edges or these edge selections. Same for like the smoothing operations. It's really awesome. So it's the whole palette you see on the right side. So you see there's a bunch of tools there. Some of them sadly do not work anymore in R20, but most of them still do. Maybe I should check if there if there is an update. Maybe he worked on it again. All right. So I think the last few sharp edges I did to the top were like really messy, and you can see that the surface is not clean at all. But I think I'm finally done with that piece. Yeah, and now I'm moving on to his hair. And I kind of wanted to split it up into two pieces, because just from that little rendering on the left side, I thought like this is too much black for my taste. It's not interesting enough. I wanted some stuff to happen there. So what I'm doing here is some preparation for a bevel I want to do. So all the time I have in mind that this will be, or we'll get two materials. I think I wanted the parts to be the polygons to be more square, and that's why I added some subdivisions. Now again, this is something I really like to do. You see me perform like the same set of actions again and again, and each time I get faster. And you can convert polygon selections to point and edge selections by Control or Command clicking them on the left side. So I thought maybe I would select those polygons in the middle there too, but that was not possible. If you know how to do it, let me know. Maybe there's some way. Because some polygon operations are like, yeah, same here, right? Now I just wanted to select like these inner lines of polygons, and I was hoping I could do it by converting this selection and then shrinking it down. But then I had these little polygons on the sides. So I was looking for the move along normal tool and I couldn't find it. I think I had it on some hotkey before and the hotkey had changed, or I changed it or something. So it was the default hotkey again. And now I could do it because I wanted some more space between those parts. And then I deleted the mid part and was hoping to get like an easy selection for one half of that piece. But I forgot that I have caps on each side, and this is why the selection now isn't working. And now I figured out, damn, I have caps on the sides. So now, of course, it still doesn't work because it's still connected on the back part that you not see. Yep, that's it. So same again, converting the edge selection to a polygon selection, shrinking it down, and then deleting it. And now I have two separate polygon islands. And I can select it with a shortcut. Still not working. Where is it still connected? Up there, one polygon. All because I forgot about the caps. So I think the idea was good. Because now it's working. Now I can just select it easily. But yeah, we'll struggle. So now I apply 2 textures to see if it actually works, and I ended up liking it a lot. But now, of course, these little details look very simple, just these square shapes. And if you look at this guy, there aren't many rectangle or square shapes. So I decided to give them some roundness. And then because of the material I had applied to the selection of the lower part, I ended up getting these dark black corners. But I kind of like that and made a quick render to see how it looks like and decided to stick with it and actually give them a little extrude uh, so they do not look like a texturing mistake or so. Wanted them to look like they are had some kind of purpose, or like I did them intentionally. So again, same here. And I do believe that stuff like this is like really important when you're getting started with 3D stuff. That's what I'm doing right here. This is like moving around, making exactly the selections you want, learning how to jump between tools effectively. I mean, just to make good and effective selections and how to save them, how to decrease and increase its size and deal with different selection tools. There's so much to learn about just that. And if you skip it in the beginning, everything else you'll do afterwards will take longer because you haven't learned how to navigate and select properly. Now adding some more detail to it. So what I actually really like doing when working with polygons is I save backups in between every time I make like big changes. So before I separated the hair into like 2 parts, I saved the backup to add details later. Or if I like screw up something, I can always go back. And then when I save the file, you see like the file name of this guy is RoboGod4. So when I would go for like RoboGod5, I would actually delete the backups because I would have all the backups in version 4. So I keep it clean. And also file size is a little smaller, but mostly to just keep it clean. I'm also used to an environment where it was very, very important that my files are so clean that somebody could take over. And wouldn't get lost in the file. So having all your objects named correctly, or at least that it makes sense, and your whole scene like very cleaned up and structured way was always very welcome. Because you can't imagine how much time you can lose just because of that. Or even worse, someone wants to or has to continue working on your stuff, and then it takes hours to clean it up just to make it work for that person. And I believe that you navigate much faster through your own file if you just keep it clean. So now I actually decided that this is that I don't like how the shading works in the rendering, because I have a lot of little artifacts going on there. And now you see why, right? The surface still has like many imperfections. And I should have done something like this when before the control cutting, like going over it, looking at it from many different angles, seeing if the surface is like has a nice curve to it. And then the less polygons you have to work with, the easier it is to make changes. And now you see it's just quick and dirty changes to make sure that it looks okay in the rendering. I mean, at this point, I know that I hadn't done like a good job there. But overall, I think I was happy because it looked like much better than the part before. And now I'll do something quite important, because now it's time for the eyes. That will add like a lot of character to it. And I decided to just start with a simple plane. And then place them into that eye where I spend like so much time modeling or sculpting it over and over again. So I'll start very rough here just to get an idea how it will look like, and if it's something I can refine later. I think I just wanted to get some feedback in the rendering and see if something like that even works. Now the other eye. They actually decided that it's better just to to put the polygons on top of the surface. Maybe that's what I should have done for the first one as well, because that was like much faster. But there are always like many ways to create an object. So trying different approaches is also something that's really cool if you start playing around with that, because you'll actually learn like what takes you less time or what works best for you. I think different people also like different tools more or less. I know some who just love splines and they build so many different things just with splines, and I'm more the polygon guy. So I just applied a quick emission material in Octane, and for some reason the lower part was not emitting like any light. So I checked if something was off, if the surface wasn't closed or something. And to be honest, I don't know what it was. Maybe I applied the material to a group or something. Now I made it like stronger to see if the effect is because of like the values. Then I thought maybe it's like too much inside of that head object. So maybe I have to pull it out more in order for it to like emit light. That's like all the troubleshooting that goes through my head to kind of figure out why the lower part wasn't emitting light. And then I saw it flipped normals. Okay, that could be something. But I think the reason was this. I think it was not thick enough. Yeah, now it's emitting light. So it's a black body emission, so I can choose like a different temperature. I know I don't want to go for any like crazy colors. It would either be like orange, yellowish, or blue. And I add that additional glow in the Octane camera object. You can't see that right here off screen, but it's like a little some tweaking between the power of the emission and the camera effect that kind of builds on that. But you see now the emission of the eyes is actually so weak that the highlights of the armor also get this kind of effect. So I have to make it like a little stronger. Blue or orange? Blue or orange? Now I'm just trying to figure out, is it like both eyes, just one pair of eyes? I think in the final image, I just made them both like smaller. They were just like too dominant in that first test. think it's weird that I didn't try like little spheres or cylinders or something, that I always like worked on the same shapes. I would have definitely tried that now. But like I said earlier, you can probably spend like a lot of time tweaking everything for weeks. And now I figured out that I just want this part to be smaller, and I ended up liking it a lot. So what I'm now trying to get is a similar kind of intensity like the second eye has. So when I push it later, they end up like the same. I think I'm close, but for the final touches, it's better to get like in and just move the points. I think for that similar reason, I make it like a little thicker here and pull it out so that it gets like a little stronger. Just like ever so slightly. Now let's see. Yeah, that looks good. Now I pushed it out again because you couldn't see it like on the left. Like the effect was exactly what I wanted, but because of the symmetry, it wasn't working. So when I pulled it out now, the light became way too strong. So what I ended up doing is I actually did it asymmetrical. You can't see that in the rendering, but just a little tweak to make it look better. Again, not sure about the color. Now I even play with the texture emission. Because in a texture emission, I can just pick whatever color. So at first I wanted to see like if the blue I apply here is actually stronger. And it definitely is. Not because of the power, but in general, because of the texture emission, it's like much closer to the color you choose. And I think I ended up liking that because I have so much control over it. Yeah, now I'm just playing around. At this point, I even considered a different color scheme. I think that's why I tried like so many different colors. But now I'm back to blue. I had decided on yellow or orange in the end because I knew I was using like gold as a different color in this design. now I'm back to the beard. I actually had a quite good idea of what I wanted to go for here. And I think I put quite some time into making like the right selection and everything. And this is why I'm repositioning them, because I know that there will be like extrudes happening and they will become thicker, especially at the end and at the beginning. So I think I'm moving them apart a little more. This is definitely something that comes with experience, where you plan ahead with all the tools you have. So right now, I know how the next, I don't know, 20 minutes will look like. Like the selections I have to prepare now, and I think I put quite some time into that. And it seems a little weird because like when you when you are watching this workshop now, the especially in ZBrush, the beard hasn't been around for quite some time. So I just started to bring it up here in Cinema 4D. But all that time, I knew what I wanted to go for. And I don't know why the selection stops like that. Like the loop tool is not working properly, but the normals are kind of inverted here. So I figured out, okay, before I even start working on these, I have to fix the topology and the normal maps. And before I start changing all of this, I just made sure I save the selection first. And I'll know that later on I will need to work on the caps, which look like very weird right now. So this is why I turn them into n-gons, one after another. See, so first I did every selection one after another, and then I figured, okay, there's a faster way to do it. Boop, boop, boop. Now I shrink it. Same effect, right? And that's why it is so important to just do stuff, because you like develop workflows like that for yourself. If you only think about stuff in your head and what you could do and never actually put in the hours to create stuff on your own, to build stuff on your own, this is what you'll miss out on. So when I was still employed at a company, they actually had a different a different project planning. Like for the 3D stuff I did, it was like for the projects I've worked on, it was Nick hours. It was not normal days. And I think that was quite funny. And I also knew that we did some projects just because of the fact that I was fast. And back then I was working in 3D like almost every day. So definitely had a good workflow back then. So I have to get back into shape. And I actually missed one there. So bad. It's the only mistake I made here. This could have been, the whole creation could have been like so much faster. So again, a little planning ahead here. I know that I will extrude this part, but I will create, or I'll save the selection first, both for polygons and for edges. Just adding some like little detail with a slide tool. Doesn't have to be perfect. I think in 3D, actually, like a lot of stuff looks too perfect. And oftentimes, especially like with renderings, you want to appear like very realistic. You end up adding in a lot of like mistakes, let's say it that way, to make it more imperfect than how you build it. Now, I actually thought of doing that selection manually. Interesting. And then I thought, wait, I have a polygon selection. I can convert it into edges. I don't know if it's actually faster this way. I think if I should have just continued, maybe this was even like a bad idea. Yeah, this was a bad idea. But again, I believe that all this stuff makes you better, makes you faster, makes you learn all these tools. Now I actually saw that I missed the selection down there, but I think I don't fix it in time. Yeah, so this was definitely the hard way to do it. I should have just selected the edges I wanted manually instead of inverting that selection. But I'm also telling myself to try different approaches. Sometimes it's longer, but sometimes you come up with new stuff or stuff that makes your workflow faster, especially if you work or if you have a certain level of expertise in something. You tend to surrender to some of your habits. So maybe you have a certain workflow that you've used for years, and since then you haven't questioned it, and you still do it the same way. But maybe your workflow is kind of old-fashioned now. So I think it's helpful to think of it this way. Always like being aware that there are like other options, other possibilities to do stuff. When I was teaching Cinema 4D to students, I put a lot of emphasis onto something like that. Because for someone who has just like picked up Cinema 4D a couple of days or a couple of weeks ago, something like this is insane. Jumping between objects, making a selection like that, deselecting, keeping it, inverting it, thinking like a couple of steps ahead of what you want to do, what you want to achieve. So I think now I finally have it. And I'll save that selection for now and use it later. But then I asked myself, okay, when I extrude this now, will I still keep this old selection? Will it still look the same? So I saved this new one. And then figured out that the old selection I made is not working anymore. So I just converted that add selection to a spline now, and now I can apply the effect I wanted. I just had to do that first before the extrusion. And back again. I think the extrusion was not strong enough. This was a very weird effect, and to be honest, I don't know why this happened. I just used a bevel, and even with a very small value, I got like these results. And I don't know why, because it's all like closed geometry. There are no polygons inside. So what I ended up doing is like an inner extrude, and then I pushed it along the normals outwards. So it's the same as like a bevel effect with no subdivisions. Many ways to do the same stuff. Now I'm changing the size of the tubes, and I also already applied like gold to them. That's the part that's actually like missing here in this tutorial, because I didn't really create like materials. I used materials I already had, so there is no part in this like little workshop where you see me actually creating like Octane materials here, because I just used a bunch that I already had. So far, so good. And then I figured out, no. That's the polygon selection I was missing in the start. And now I had to do that later on. But when I saw it, I smiled and said like, okay, come on, you'll do this now. I could have gone like back a lot of times, but I said to myself, nope, I'll just model that part. Now I'm actually kind of curious to see if I would still do it like the same way, now that I can rewatch it. Not quite, but I think it's okay. What I like about something like this is that you might have realized that a lot of 3D is like problem solving. And I also talk about like solving stuff and figuring it out and thinking of it like a puzzle, because stuff like this is going to happen no matter how many years you spend learning a program. Getting closer? But there must be a better way, right? I mean, it takes quite some time. I think for this one, I did not have any backup file, because I think actually like rebuilding like this one part would have been faster. Now I thought it would be easier to just extrude it. I don't know why I didn't. Or because it was no circular shape. I could have made it a circular shape. Ah, damn. I mean, when I started, I thought like, okay, this looks elegant. Looks like a good solution. But this like just seems too much of an effort. All right, almost done. But I got some inverted normals here again. So maybe I did make a mistake somewhere. So did I have some bad geometry inside or so? Because I don't know why. It's very untypical for like single polygons to be all of a sudden be inverted or something. In Cinema 4D, you actually have a very cool tool for that. It's called the mesh checker, and you can access it via the attribute manager. And it can actually show you like overlapping points, bad polygons, uh, unplanar polygons, and stuff like that. It's really cool to check if you modeled like in a very clean way. Especially good for beginners, just to have it like on while you're modeling. Always when I do like selections like these, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you just tell your software to select them? Or like select one piece and the software automatically selects the rest of them? That would be so nice. I think we'll have it at some point. Now we're talking to Siri and Alexa. And in the future, we will talk about or with everything in our surrounding, I guess. I also tried sculpting in VR, and it was really, really cool, but I felt like the tools just needed a lot of development, especially if you've worked in a software that has been around as long as ZBrush. These sculpting tools just feel so good. And then when you work in a new program with new sculpting tools that have just been or still under development, then it all felt like a little weird. But overall, it was really awesome to sculpt something that is in front of you, and instead of dealing with like pen pressure, you actually decide how much pressure or how deep you carve into surfaces and stuff. I think it's really, really cool. If those tools get more intuitive and better to use, I think this also will be like really huge. So this is definitely something I wanna try at some point, like VR sculpting more. The tools are better. Oh, so I actually changed the eyes back to yellow because after the beard, I knew that I was going for some yeah, like gold on his armor and his face as well. And that's why I changed his eye color as well. I don't want it to be like too colorful. And now he has like a little background. It's just the background of the HDRI I used. At this point, I felt like a little imbalance. And I felt like the eye was more like drawn from the eye and nose area towards the chin and beard, which is okay. Like I put most details on the face, right? But I felt like there needed to be something on his head, just a little bit, to balance that. So I decided to actually take these things I sculpted and also do like a quick retopology and move them forward a bit. And the way I retopologized them is is so bad. That's not how I would do it. Now I would just do like a simple shape, like just a single polygon for the top part, and then slice it up for the lower part. Then one control cut, and I would have had probably the same, just cleaner. But this is also something I say to myself when Cinema 4D crashes. You're always faster the second time. So now I'm using the scripts of the HB modeling tool again. Like straighten this up. I know it doesn't have to be perfect because it's like distorted and because of the perspective and everything. So probably won't see it if it's not perfectly straight and everything. Yeah, see, and if I would have built it like better in the first place, and I don't even know why I used snapping for that. I could have saved a lot of time because doing all this would have been like unnecessary. Now I just positioned it the center so I can mirror it over. And this was a little mistake, giving it depth like too early. But we'll get to that soon. And do not think that I don't like what I did here just because I'm saying like, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. I'm just like saying this to myself, and because I want to improve, I want to get better, and I know there's like still like so much to learn. So it's all good to make mistakes, but try to not make them again. Sometimes I actually like write them down if it was something like really cost me like a lot of time. Actually, when I started, or when I had like finished my studies and started working as a 3D artist, I think for the first year, I wrote down every feedback I got from my art directors. And then every time before I went to them on the next project, I went through my list and tried to fix it myself. Is there something I'm missing here? Is there something that I don't see? So I think it's a very good way to just like keep track of what you did, mistakes you've made, that you can always like go back. And I spent so much time tweaking it here, or like making this correction. But I should have done this without the extraction and then extracted it like with the details. I could have saved a lot of steps then. Because now I have to do it like on both sides every time. And imagine I have modeled that on the planar version. And when then I extrude it out, I would have had all these details. Maybe seems like a minor thing, but if you apply stuff like that to a project you work on like for weeks, then stuff like that really sums up. And now for some reason I wanted to use a Spherify. For it to have like a little curvature. But with a Spherify object, it's very strong on its edge, right? So it flattens the whole object. What I should have done is just go for a bend deformer or an FFD deformer. But now you see all of my my geometry is just flat. I was like, damn it. And instead of just using another deformer, I actually went back and extruded it again. Well, you're always faster. Second time. And now I apply the deformer. And then, so this is what I meant, right? If I would have done this from the start, I would have saved like a lot of steps because I don't have to tweak like the other side. And this is what I meant when I was talking about balance. Now I have something on top that changes the silhouette. And in general, there is like something happening. And it appears it has some kind of purpose. Now it doesn't change the silhouette, but now I also get some nice shadows. I mean, I have to push it in a little more, but I think now that works a lot better. Because of the shadows, I have some more contrast on top. I get some nice highlight on the left part. And that fixed it for me. And it's so nice to see it in just a couple of seconds in the rendering. I remember times where you had to wait like minutes, sometimes hours, just to see what you've been working on for the past few days. And then if you found a mistake, oh, you had to wait for so long. That was quite painful. And now it just happens in seconds. It's so nice to work with. If this was a lucky decision here, I think this really, you remember when I was sculpting this part and I said like, the side looks so weird, so out of place and so different from everything else. I think with like this little addition here, it got some purpose. Like there was something happening there, whatever it is. But before that, I just wanted to make sure that I will not have like any flaws in my eyes just because they are so low in topology and not rounded. So I just wanted to avoid that I'm having issues later on. And you can see how messy it looks when you when you zoom in like so much. but in the image you just can't tell. This is what I meant when we were in ZBrush and I said like, how far can you push what? This belongs into that category. Okay. What do you see? What do you don't see? What is necessary? It's not necessary that I model an eye area there that you won't see. Yeah, and now that I had like this polished piece for the forehead, this like little cover up here for this cable just looked like really weird. So I said, well, let's clean this up as well. I need some more practice with polygon modeling again. At first I was a little surprised why it felt so weird. Like positioning it. You see how I'm rotating like the camera a lot? And I think at this point I haven't figured out that I have point snapping on. So it's not just snapping to the surface of the polygons, it's actually snapping to vertex points. And if you look closely, the tool I use even tells me like what kind of snapping is active right now. And you see like vertex snap, vertex snap. But I think overall I like the decision making here better. I have less topology. It's just, the piece is simpler, yes. Maybe I just want to tell myself that I should not shy away from polygon modeling and retopologizing just because it took like so much time on the forehead piece. And now the point snapping is disabled. I didn't even see when I did it. But what I don't get is why I like model these edges. Maybe I decided that I won't even extrude it at all. Because you won't see like the back of it anyway. And that's the step I meant for the forehead. Like going in, checking with your low topology that everything like lines up in a nice way so that you have a smooth surface. That's what I was missing on the forehead. I really like the magnet tool for that. I think I should have used the magnet here as well with like a very little radius. But that's good, I think. Definitely less time on this one. And it's also I think the the last part we're tweaking here, and then we're almost done. So I'm really, really curious to know what you think about this series, because especially here, with all the retopologizing and stuff, there is some is not much for me to say. If we would do a workshop on polygon modeling, of course, there's a lot I could explain, and then I would prepare files that would really show what I was talking about. But I decided, to show you all of it, even though it takes time. I mean, I learned a lot from it, doing the voiceovers and the edit and everything. So this was a really nice experience for me. I think from my perspective, I would speed things up, like stuff where I think that it's not necessary or of any value to you, but what I think and what you really find useful might be two different things. So maybe you say, hey, Nick, it was like really nice, to have, like, to see it all and choose your own pace. Maybe you turned even off the sound, listen to music. Who knows? And I'm asking myself, am I actually like leave this part at that? I made a little polygon mistake. I don't know if you've seen it, but this is why I get a little, like this little surface tension there. Oh no, it all looked good. Seems like I didn't see it. Okay, if I didn't see it, then it's all fine. If it doesn't show in the rendering, I'm good. For the rendering part, like I said, what I have on the left side is basically where I start from. So there's not many like material changes here. So I would just apply a couple of materials I have and then mix them all together in Photoshop in the next part. Oh yeah, there's actually like a little thing missing. Like we have one more thing. So I just do like a little edge to spline here. And then just use this spline to add some kind of contour line to this head detail. Because at this point I probably know that I'll give this part another color later on. So just some little tweaking here so that it's not stuck in the surface. And then we'll have no problem when we'll give this spline some thickness. So I really like the overall progress this project has made, from like the initial sculpt to the refinement to the edit assets and detail here in Cinema 4D. And for me, it's nice to see that I seem to need like 1 or 2 hours, and then I'm like in the zone. I don't know, stuff just seems easier and makes progress faster. I could see that in ZBrush and in Cinema 4D here as well. It's always an exciting feeling when what you've been working on like comes together. And of course, this sensation is even greater in the next part. What I'm trying to say is that what I have here now is nothing I could have imagined at the start of the session. So maybe I had a vague idea about it, yes, and some kind of plan, okay. But the result is something that needed this time and this process. And I think people often shy away from the process itself. And that's such a pity, because who knows what they could achieve. It doesn't matter what you do. You just have to do it, and then at some point you get really lost in it, and that's just a beautiful feeling. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing all this. I just can't not do it. I just love it so much, and if I don't, I'll start to miss it. So this was part 3 of the creation of Seka. I really hope you liked it. If you liked it, hit that subscribe button. Definitely let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.